You know those mornings when everything feels just right? The kind where the sun filters through the curtains like it's got a secret to share, and the world outside your window hums with that quiet promise of a good day ahead. That's how it was for me that crisp autumn morning in Greenwich. I was Sophia Hale, 35 years old, a trusts and estates lawyer who'd clawed her way from grief-stricken daughter to partner in a boutique firm that safeguarded legacies for the quietly wealthy families of Connecticut. 8 years of marriage, a sprawling colonial mansion with ivy climbing the stone walls like old friends, and a conference in Paris calling my name, a chance to speak on protecting family fortunes in an age of digital predators. I slid into the leather seat of my Audi, the engine purring to life as I merged onto I-95, the skyline of New York fading in my rear view like a distant memory. My carry-on was packed with notes for my keynote, the kind of talk that could land new clients, the kind that made me feel like I was honouring the man who'd built our family's quiet empire from nothing. Dad had passed 5 years ago, a heart attack at 62, leaving me his practice and a leather-bound journal full of scribbled wisdom. Trust is the lock. Vigilance is the key. I'd laughed at that back then, tucked it away like a talisman. Halfway to JFK, about 40 minutes in, my fingers drummed the wheel to the soft jazz on the radio. I reached for my passport in the glove compartment. Habit, really. One last check before security swallowed me up. Empty. My stomach dropped, a cold flutter like ice water in my veins. I'd left it on the nightstand last night, after double-checking the expiration for the umpteenth time. Stupid. Catastrophic, even. This wasn't just a trip. It was my moment, the validation that Sophia Hale wasn't just riding her father's coattails. I punched the console, voice steady, but edged with that lawyer's precision. Next exit. Please? The GPS chimed back, rerouting me through the winding back roads of Westchester. 25 minutes to beat the clock, catch a later flight if I hustled. My mind raced ahead. Reschedule the panel, text my assistant. Pray the gods of international travel had mercy. Pulling into our driveway, the mansion loomed like it always did. 3 stories of warm brick and gabled roofs. The kind of place that whispered old money without shouting it. Ethan's SUV was still there, which made sense. He worked from home most days, consulting on investment portfolios for high-net-worth clients. The front door was unlocked, a tiny thing easily overlooked. Ethan was meticulous about locks, always had been. "Safety first, Soph," he'd say with that easy smile, the one that crinkled the corners of his blue eyes. But I was in a fog, heels clicking on the marble foyer as I headed straight for the stairs. Passport upstairs, quick in, quick out. Then I heard him. His voice, drifting down from his office on the 3rd floor, low and intimate, laced with that casual laugh he saved for late-night calls with old fraternity brothers. But this wasn't laughter for a buddy. It was softer, warmer. "Darling, you won't believe how smooth it's going. The trust documents are airtight. By Friday, it'll all be ours." I froze on the bottom step, hand gripping the carved banister like it was the only solid thing left. Darling. He never called me that. It was always Soph, or Love, or that teasing counsellor when we bantered over wine. My heart thudded, a dull drum in my ears, drowning out the tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. Who was he talking to? And what trust? Ours was ironclad, the one I'd redrafted myself after Dad's death, shielding the family holdings, the firm, the rental properties in Fairfield, Mum's cosy cottage by the Sound. 3 million in assets, woven tight as a spider's web, I should have called out, announced myself like any normal wife rushing back for a forgotten wallet. But something in his tone, the satisfaction, the undercurrent of triumph, pinned me there. My legal brain kicked in, the one honed from years of depositions and cross-examinations. Observe first. Gather facts. Don't tip your hand. Barely breathing, I edged closer to the staircase, the wool runner muffling my steps. The house was old, built in the 1920s, with acoustics that betrayed secrets if you knew where to listen. And I did. 8 years in these walls had taught me every creak, every echo. His voice sharpened, words slicing through the air like a knife through silk. She signed it all, Evelyn too. Thought I was the knight in shining armour, fixing their messes after Richard died. The foreclosure on the cottage hits Tuesday. Poetic, really. And that secret trust her old man left. The one with the offshore kicker. Mine by week's end. A pause, then that laugh again, rich and cruel. God, after 8 years of playing house with that Ice Queen lawyer, pretending to love her night after night. But darling, we're almost free. Paris will be our new start. No more masks. The world tilted. My knuckles whitened on the wood, nails digging in until I felt the bite. Ice Queen. Pretending. Our marriage. Those quiet dinners by the fire. The way he'd hold me after a brutal court day. Whispering that I was his anchor, reduced to a script. And Mom's cottage. The one Dad built with his own hands, where I'd learned to sail on the rocky shore, where she'd retreated after his funeral like a bird to its nest. Foreclosure stolen by him, my husband. The man who'd proposed on bended knee in the garden, ring glinting under string lights, promising forever. Bile rose in my throat, hot and bitter, but I swallowed it down. Not yet, not here. Evidence first. That was the mantra Dad drilled into me, the one that had turned his solo practice into Hale and Associates. My hands trembled, but my mind sharpened, cataloguing every word like exhibits in a trial binder. He thought I was halfway to France by now, blissfully ignorant, my plane slicing the Atlantic while he dismantled our life piece by piece. He had no idea I was 20 feet below, piecing together the wreckage of everything I thought was real. And in that frozen moment, something inside me cracked. Not broke, but cracked open. The trusting wife, the devoted daughter, the lawyer who believed in contracts and covenants. She was slipping away. In her place, a stranger stirred, colder, sharper, ready to rewrite the ending. But first I needed to hear the rest. Every damning detail. Because if this was war, and it was, I wasn't going down without a fight. I backed away from those stairs like a shadow slipping through fog, every sense screaming to bolt, to shatter the silence with accusations that would echo off these walls we'd painted together. But no, rushing in blind would hand him the win, turn my fury into his narrative. Instead, I eased the front door open just enough to slide through, the latch clicking soft as a whisper in the empty driveway. My heels scraped the gravel as I crossed to the car, keys fumbling in my pocket like traitors, twice before they caught the lock. Inside, the engine's hum felt too loud, too alive for the dead weight in my chest. I sat there, engine idling, staring at the mansion through the windshield, its windows like blind eyes watching me unravel. Tears came then, not the soft kind that blur edges, but hot tracks of rage that burned my cheeks, blurring the ivy into smears of green. 8 years. The proposal under those string lights, the way he'd knelt with that antique sapphire ring, eyes shining like he'd found home in me. The nights I'd collapsed into bed after closing a trust for some grieving widow, and he'd pull the covers up, murmuring, "You've got the weight of worlds on you. Soph, let me carry some." Lies, all of it, scripted for a mark, but crying was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not when Mum's cottage, the one with the creaky porch swing where Dad taught me to read case law under the stars, was one signature away from the auction block. I wiped my face with the heel of my hand, breath steadying into something sharper, more calculated. Dad's journal burned in my mind. Vigilance isn't paranoia. It's preparation. Okay, Dad, let's prepare. My phone was in the cup holder, screen dark as judgment. First call, to Lena, my assistant, the unflappable force who'd been my right hand since the firm was just me and a folding table in Dad's old garage. She picked up on the first ring, her voice all brisk efficiency with that faint Boston lilt. "Sophia, you should be through security by now." "Flight on time?" Lena, I said, forcing calm into the words like threading a needle in the dark. I need a favour. No questions yet, just trust me. A beat of silence, the kind that spoke volumes from someone who'd seen me through depositions that lasted dawn to dusk. Always. What's the play? Call the Paris organisers. Family emergency, I'm out. Then at the office, if anyone asks, I'm there, buried in sessions, email only, unreachable otherwise. Another pause, longer this time, heavy with the unspoken. Lena wasn't just staff. She was the sister I never had, the one who'd brought me soup during the all-nighters after Dad's funeral, when grief clawed so deep I forgot to eat. Soph, you okay? Sound like you've seen a ghost. Her worry cracked something in me, a hairline fracture in the armour I was forging. I'm safe, promise, just... Hold the line for me. I'll loop you in soon. You got it. Whatever this is, I've got your back. Paris Sophia it is. The line clicked dead and I exhaled, one ally secured. The dashboard clock blinked 9:17. 40 minutes since I'd left. An eternity in the life I'd thought was mine. No going back to the mansion, not yet. Ethan believed I was airborne, oblivious, with 5 days to gut our world while I sipped espresso on the Seine. That window was my weapon. Fragile as glass, but sharp if I wielded it right. I threw the car into gear, tyres crunching gravel as I pulled onto the tree-lined street, no destination but away. Greenwich blurred past. Manicured lawns, joggers in Lululemon, the postcard version of Connecticut privilege that suddenly felt like a stage set. 10 minutes of autopilot wandering brought me to a hole-in-the-wall cafe in Darien, the kind with mismatched mugs and chalkboard specials no one under 50 could read without glasses. Neutral ground far from our zip code, where Ethan's ghost wouldn't linger. I claimed a corner booth back to the wall, eyes on the door, old lawyer habit, scanning for exits and threats. Coffee arrived black and steaming, untouched as I pulled out my phone again. Clara, my college roommate, now a forensic accountant in Stamford, the woman who dragged me through finals week with black coffee and brutal honesty. If anyone could autopsy this mess, it was her, the bloodhound who'd once unravelled a client's embezzlement scheme from a single coffee-stained receipt. Her number rang twice before her voice cut in, warm but wary. Soph? Thought you were en route to croissants and the Louvre. What's up? Clara, I need you, now. Brooklyn Bridge level confidentiality. Can you meet? Like yesterday? My voice cracked on the last word, the tremor slipping through despite the steel I was trying to summon. A sharp intake of breath. Jesus, Soph, you sound wrecked. Where? Darien Coffee House, the one on Post Road, 30 minutes? On my way. Don't move. She hung up, and I stared at the steam curling from my mug, twisting like the lies I'd swallowed for years. The barista hummed some indie folk tune behind the counter. Oblivious, and for a wild second I envied that. Normalcy. The luxury of not knowing your foundation was sand. Clara burst in 28 minutes later, laptop bag slung over her shoulder like armour, her dark curls escaping a hasty ponytail. At 36, she looked every bit the shark she'd become. Sharp blazer, sharper eyes that missed nothing. She slid into the booth, scanning my face like a balance sheet gone red. Talk, now, and start with why you're not on a plane. So I did. Poured it out in whispers. The unlocked door, the voice on the stairs, darling and foreclosure and ice queen like venom in a vial. Her face hardened with each detail, that accountant's poker face cracking into something fierce, protective. When I finished, she was already firing up her laptop, fingers flying across keys. Okay, first, we're pulling every thread. Joint accounts, trusts, mum's holdings, everything. You got your banking app. Let's dive. I nodded, pulling up the portal on my phone, the one I'd barely glanced at in months because Ethan handled the numbers, always with that reassuring nod. I've got this, love. Focus on the law. Trust. God, the irony soured in my mouth like weak old wine. The joint checking looked benign at first. Salary deposits from the firm, utilities that weekend in Napa last spring. But Clara zeroed in, her voice dropping to a murmur as patterns emerged. Outflows, sly and steady, $2,000 here, $4,500 there, every 3 weeks like clockwork. Below the alert threshold, of course. Clever bastard. Legacy Holdings, she said finally, screen angled my way, tracing a wire to an LLC registered in Delaware. Shell company smells like. Give me 10. I'll make calls. She stepped out to the patio, phone to her ear, her gestures clipped as she grilled contacts in low, urgent tones. I watched through the window, nursing that cold coffee, the bitterness mirroring the churn in my gut. 8 months ago, Ethan had slid a stack of papers across our kitchen island at dawn, eyes soft with concern. Soph, Mum's cottage taxes are killing her. This consolidation, it's just streamlining. Lowers the load on everyone. I'd signed in the margins, half asleep, laptop glowing with a brief for a contested will. Why question the man who'd balanced my world when mine spun off axis? Clara returned, face like thunderclouds rolling in off the sound. She sat leaning in close. Sophia. Ethan Hale isn't his name. Not fully. Ethan Voss, real deal. Did 3 in Walpole for securities fraud. Boston, 9 years back. Paroled early for good behaviour. Changed the surname to blend in. Clean slate for fresh hunts. She turned the screen. Mugshots faded but unmistakable. That same jawline. Those eyes. 9 years ago. 1 year before he bumped into me at that estates conference in Manhattan. All earnest questions about probate loopholes, buying me a drink after like fate had scripted it. My breath hitched, the booth closing in. And legacy? Co-owned with Honora Blake, 28, flashy Instagram life. Yachts, Milan, the works. But dig deeper? She's the darling on the phone. They've run this play before. 4 known marks, women like you, widowed or solo, assets ripe for the picking. One in Philly lost her gallery, another in Providence her vineyard. The last... God, Soph, she took her own life 6 months after. Pills and a note about betrayal's weight. Clara's hand covered mine, steady as bedrock. He's not just a thief, he's a ghost, haunting the lives he touches. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading cold through me. 4 women. Lives unravelled, one snuffed out, because they trusted like I had, opened the vault to a stranger in a suit. And Nora, not some equal partner, but a pawn, younger, hungrier, her feed a gloss over desperation. But the worst, the detail that clawed deepest, was the offhand mention in one of Ethan's emails Clara pulled up. Lily's photos sealed the deal last time. Kids soften the edges. Lily. His daughter from a first marriage he'd glossed over as too painful to dwell on. A 10-year-old pixie with pigtails he'd shown me pictures of once. Voice thick. She's my heart, Soph, but distance keeps her safe. Safe. From what? From him. I pressed my fingers to my temples, the cafe's hum fading to a roar in my ears. Not just money, not just Mum's cottage with its salt-kissed shutters and Dad's faded Adirondack chair. This was a man who'd weaponized a child, dangled fatherhood like bait to reel in trust. Clara. What now? She closed the laptop with a snap, eyes locking mine. Now, we arm up. But first, breathe. You're not alone in this storm. Her words hung there, a lifeline in the wreck, but as we plotted next moves, freezing accounts, alerting the firm, a shadow loomed larger than Ethan's lies. Because if Nora was the key to his kingdom, cracking her might unlock hell, or heaven. And I wasn't sure which scared me more. The cafe's chatter faded to a distant hum as Clara's words settled, heavy as wet sand on my chest, but they didn't drown me. They ignited something fiercer, a spark Dad would have called the fire in the fight. We spent the next hour there, her laptop a battlefield of spreadsheets and subpoenas in waiting, mapping the bleed from our accounts into Legacy's veins, $720,000 siphoned over 2 years, funneled through Mum's cottage refinance and that harmless equity line Ethan sweet-talked her into last spring. He played the long game, Clara muttered, highlighting a transfer time-stamped the day after our anniversary toast. Patient as a spider. By noon, the plan crystallized. I'd head to Mum's cottage first, gentle as I could, to unearth the paper trail without shattering her. Clara would loop in Harlan, the firm's senior partner who'd mentored Dad back when estates law was still done with typewriters and trust. No direct lines to Ethan, she warned, packing up. Radio silence. Let him think the fly's still in the web. I hugged her then, quick and bone-tight. The kind of embrace that says more than thanks, says you're my shield in this. The drive to the cottage took 40 minutes, winding along the Merritt Parkway with leaves turning fire gold under a reluctant sun. Mom's place sat on a bluff overlooking Long Island Sound. A saltbox charmer Dad had expanded himself, porch addition for lazy Sundays, widow's walk, where he'd sketch case notes while gulls wheeled overhead. She'd moved there full-time after his funeral, trading the bustle of our childhood home in Stamford for waves that whispered like old friends. At 70, Evelyn Hale was all silver hair and soft edges, the woman who'd baked lemon bars for my law school send-off and never once let grief harden her. But Ethan, he'd been her rock, or so she'd thought, driving her to cardiologist appointments, balancing her checkbook with that patient smile. He's a keeper, Sophie, she'd say, patting my hand. Keeper. The word twisted now, bitter as brine. I parked in the crushed shell driveway, the crunch under tyres like brittle bones. Mum answered the door in her gardening apron, dirt smudged on one cheek, a trowel dangling from her pocket like a forgotten talisman. Her face lit up, then furrowed, surprise chasing confusion. Sophia, darling, aren't you supposed to be packing for Paris? Come in, the hydrangeas are finally blooming. She pulled me into a hug that smelled of earth and her lavender soap, the kind that used to chase nightmares when I was small. We settled at the kitchen table, the one scarred from Dad's late-night poker games with the neighbours, mugs of chamomile steaming between us. Sunlight slanted through the bay window, gilding the salt air with gold. Mom, I started, voice careful as laying out evidence. I need to see any paperwork Ethan's handled for you lately. The cottage stuff, taxes, anything. Her brow creased, that gentle worry line Dad called her thinking furrow. Paperwork? Oh, honey, it's all tidied up. Ethan said the new mortgage smoothed everything. Lower payments, less fuss. Why, is something wrong? I forced a smile, the kind that doesn't reach your eyes. Just routine audit for the firm. Better safe. She nodded, trusting as ever, and shuffled to Dad's old study, a nook of oak shelves bowed under law tomes and birding guides. She returned with a manila folder, innocuous as a grocery list, and slid it across. My heart sank before I even opened it. Pages of legalese dense as fog, a refinance from 18 months back, ballooning the debt to $450,000, double what we'd owed, plus a home equity line for another $150,000. Signatures bloomed at the bottom. Evelyn's elegant loop, and mine. But not mine. The slant was off, the pressure strokes too light. Forgery, clean and practiced, the work of someone who'd apprenticed in shadows. When? I asked, throat tight, flipping to the date. He came by after your Paris prep last year, she said, sinking into her chair, colour draining like tide pulling back. Said you'd pre-reviewed it all, just needed my John Hancock to lock it in. He even brought those photos of Lily, his little girl, remember? The ones with her at the pumpkin patch. Said it reminded him of family, made the numbers feel less cold. Lily. There it was again, the child's face as currency, pigtails and gap-toothed grins bartered for blind faith. The cash from that refinance? Gone, evaporated into legacy holdings, with 4 months of missed payments piling penalties like driftwood. Notices rerouted to a P.O. box in Ethan's name, of course, her statements gone digital to save the trees, he'd joked. Mom. The cottage is in foreclosure. Auction Tuesday. The words dropped like anchors, her mug clattering as she gripped the table's edge. No, that's... Ethan said. Ethan lied. To both of us. Tears welled in her eyes, not the dramatic kind, but quiet rivers carving stone. He fixed the leaky faucet last month, Soph. Brought me soup when my hip flared. How... Why? I knelt beside her, hand on hers, the tremor sinking ours. Because he's not who we thought. But we'll fix this. I promise. We spent the afternoon there, me photographing every page, her voice a murmur of memories. Dad's laugh on the porch, the way he'd hum off key while grilling blues. By dusk, I'd called Clara with the scans. She'd already pinged Harlan. Injunctions filing at dawn, he growled over speaker. And Soph, that firm's legacy, it's yours. He doesn't touch a dime. Night fell soft over the sound, waves lapping like unanswered questions, but sleep was a stranger in the guest room's four-poster. My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Clara, text only, got a hit. Nora's not all in. Check your secure drop. Heart hammering. I logged into the encrypted folder we'd set up years back for client leaks. An audio file, time-stamped an hour old, Nora's voice thin and edged with panic. Clara, it's her friend. He doesn't know I have your number. God, I can't do this anymore. The videos, he's got them from before. Says he'll ruin me if I bolt. But her, Sophia? She's next, and Lily. He's planning to ghost the kid too. Offshore tickets for 2, Friday. Help me end it. The file cut off, but the twist uncoiled in my gut like a spring trap. Nora wasn't the villainous darling, co-plotting over champagne. She was another ghost in his gallery. A mark from 2 years back. A struggling model he'd charmed into investing her savings, then blackmailed with intimate clips when she wised up. Ethan had twisted her desperation into complicity, dangling escape if she'd play the honey trap for his bigger scores. And now, with the net tightening, she was cracking, reaching out through Clara's network like a hand in the dark. A follow-up text. She's legit scared. Wants to meet. You're cool. Dawn broke grey and grudging as I slipped out, leaving Mum with a pot of stew and a promise to call by noon. Back on the parkway, phone glued to the dash, I dialed Clara. Set it up. But we do this my way. Controlled burn. By 9, coordinates pinged. Nora's pied-à-terre in Stamford's yacht club district, a glossy condo with harbour views that screamed borrowed glamour. I dressed for war in a tailored pantsuit, the one Dad called my closing armour, portfolio tucked under arm with a hidden recorder, tiny, voice-activated, the kind we used for whistleblower intakes. Varnish the approach, not the scorned wife, but a journalist sniffing success stories. Flattery as the lure, truth as the hook. She buzzed me up on the third ring, door cracking to reveal a woman who looked every inch the Insta-siren. Ash-blonde waves, yoga-toned in silk loungers that probably cost a month's rent. But up close, at 28, the Polish cracked. Eyes shadowed like bruised plums, fingers twisting a bracelet that screamed nervous tick. Jennifer Ross, she echoed, stepping aside with a smile that didn't land. Freelance for Forbes, right? The piece on millennial moguls in real estate? Spot on, I said, slipping inside with a handshake firm but warm, the recorder whirring silent in my bag. The place dripped excess, marble counters cluttered with takeout remnants, floor-to-ceiling windows framing yachts bobbing like toys for the idle rich. We settled on a cream sectional, her posture all poise, but her knee bounced under the glass table. So, Hearth, Legacy Holdings, I started, pen poised over a notepad. How'd a girl from Ohio turn shell companies into 7 figures? What's the secret sauce? She warmed to it, words flowing like rehearsed TED Talk. Market gaps, emotional acquisitions, spotting widows or divorcees overwhelmed by legacy loads. But as I probed, casual, leading, her guard slipped. Take this one in Greenwich, she said, sipping rosé at 10 a.m., voice dipping conspiratorial. Cottage on the Sound owner's mum, 70, fragile after losing her husband. We refinanced to ease the burden. Now we're set for auction at 60 cents on the dollar. Flip it and boom, 800k profit. Her daughter's the lawyer type, too buried in briefs to notice. My pulse thrummed, recorder capturing every syllable, but I kept my face neutral, nodding like it was gold. Mom's cottage. Flipped like a bad hand. Partner in crime? I pressed light as air. Ethan Hale sounds like the mastermind. Nora's glass paused mid-air, eyes sharpening. Hale. Yeah, Ethan. We've been tight for years. A slip, then recovery, but the fracture was there. I leaned in, dropping the veil slow, phone out. Screen glowing with Clara's pull. Nora's old modelling portfolio. The fraud report from Ohio, where she'd lost 90k to a portfolio advisor with Voss's prints all over it. Or should I say Ethan Voss? The one with your videos? The ones he uses to keep you dancing? Her face drained to chalk, glass shattering on the hardwood in a spray of pink shards. Who the hell are you? She whispered, scrambling back, but the door was behind me now, and fear, raw, unravelling, pinned her more than walls. Sophia Hale, I said soft, the name landing like judgment. The Ice Queen lawyer, the one whose life you're helping him gut, and Nora, those videos. They're leverage for me now. Talk, every thread, every account, every lie, or we let the DA decide if you're prey or predator. She crumpled then, not with screams but sobs, the kind that hollow you out, tales spilling of Ethan spotting her at a casting call, love-bombing her into bed and bankruptcy, then chaining her with clips he'd filmed for us. He said one more score, yours, and we're out. But Lily... God, he talks about ditching her too, like she's baggage. I can't. I won't let him poison another kid. Her hand pressed her belly, subtle but there, a swell, early maybe, but real. Pregnant. With his. The twist knifed deeper, not just a mark-turned minion, but carrying his shadow, reaching for salvation in the 11th hour. We talked for hours. Her words a floodgate. Offshore nests in the Caymans, victim lists from Philly to Portland. The way he'd groom Lily's visits as photo ops to soften targets like me. By the time I left, portfolio heavy with her signed affidavit and drive full of files, Nora's eyes held something new. Not just fear, but fire. Get him, Sophia. For all of us. As the elevator descended, harbour lights winking below, I realised the real fracture wasn't in her. It was in me, cracking open to let in not just rage, but a fierce, fragile hope. Because if Nora could flip the script, maybe this war wasn't solo after all. But trust? That was a bridge I'd burn before crossing again, driving back from Nora's. The harbour's sparkle mocking me through the Rain Street window. I felt the weight of her confession settle like an old coat, worn but familiar now, carrying the scent of salt and second chances. That evening, holed up in a nondescript motel off I-95, the kind with thin walls and vending machine coffee that tasted like regret, I pieced together the arsenal with Clara over encrypted video. Her face filled my laptop screen, backlit by the glow of 3 monitors in her home office, fingers still dancing over keys like a pianist composing a requiem. Nora's files are gold, Soph. Emails time-stamped to the day. Wire confirmations routing through Panama shells. Even a voice memo of Ethan coaching her on the darling lines. Keep it sweet, but not too sweet. She bites if you overplay. Clara's voice dropped, laced with that dry wit she wielded like a scalpel. And the Lily angle. Christ, he scheduled visits with the kids synced to your travel calendar, photo dumps to your phone right after, all puppy eyes and family first captions. Softened you up for the big asks, like that trust amendment last fall. I nodded, the motel's fluorescent hum buzzing in my ears, flipping through the drive on my tablet. Victim dossiers Nora had hoarded like talismans, 5 women now, not 4. A gallery owner in Philly who'd clawed back her life only to relapse into therapy for years. a tech widow in Providence, whose vineyard vines still bore the scars of her breakdown. One name blurred through tears I didn't let fall, Elise, the lawyer from Boston, pills by her bedside with a note that read, "He made me believe in second acts." Second acts. I'd been scripting mine blind. By midnight the blueprint sharpened. Harlan's injunctions would hit the banks at open bell, freezing Legacy's tendrils mid-grab. Nora's affidavit, notarized remotely via Clara's contact, would grease the DA's wheels for conspiracy charges. And me? I'd play the ghost in my own life. Texts from Paris pinged through a VPN, voice memos edited with French cafe chatter in the background. Missed my connection, love. Storm over the Atlantic. Keynote tomorrow. Wish you were here to steady my nerves. Ethan's replies came swift, laced with that honeyed concern. Sounds brutal. Knock 'em dead, counsellor. Lily sends a drawing, attached. Home safe? The sketch popped up. A crayon house with stick figures under a lopsided sun. Labelled Our Fam. Our. The lie twisted fresh, but I forwarded it to Clara with a single word. Weapon. Sleep came in fits that night. Dreams tangled with Dad's journal pages fluttering like gulls over the sound. His scrawl warning of wolves in wool, the entry from the week before he died. Soph, legacy isn't land or ledgers. It's the light you leave for those who follow. Guard it fierce. I woke at 4, dawn a bruise on the horizon, and hit the road before the motel's parking lot stirred. Clara's update pinged as I merged onto the highway. Nora's in, full coupe. DA's prelim meeting set for noon. And Soph? 3 more reaches from old Marks. They're hearing whispers. Wantin'. Whispers. The ripple Nora's flip had started, a quiet storm gathering force. By 9 I was parked a block from the mansion, engine off, binoculars trained on the front door like a hawk on a wire. Ethan emerged at 8:45 sharp, charcoal wool overcoat flapping like cape, briefcase swinging with purpose, the picture of a man untouchable. Off to seal his empire, I tailed him at 3 cars back, the Audi blending into the commuter crawl toward Stamford's Financial Row. First stop, First Bank of Connecticut, the branch handling Mum's mortgage. He strode in like he owned the marble floors, all broad shoulders and easy nods to the tellers. Inside, Harlan waited, grey suit crisp as a summons, flanked by a bank VP briefed on the fraud. I watched from the lot, coffee going cold in my cup, as Ethan's posture shifted. Shoulders hunching, phone whipping out mid-stride on the sidewalk, voice rising in clipped fury to whoever picked up. What do you mean, blocked? Emergency order? From who? The plan's first fracture, spiderwebbing out. He gunned the SUV toward the city, and I followed. Heart a steady thrum now. Not panic, but the pulse of pursuit. Nora texted then. He's calling me, panicking. Hold. And I typed back, let him sweat. Feed the fear. His next pivot, a nondescript office in the Sono district. Voss Consulting etched on frosted glass, the ghost name, the lair. I circled the block, parking under a sycamore's dappled shade, and waited as he stormed in, emerging 20 minutes later with face like thunder, tires screeching as he peeled out. Offshore access? Dead legacy wires? Coiled and cut. By 11, Clara confirmed. Every artery he'd mapped was cauterized, the DA's net dropping silent but sure. But I held back from the kill shot, letting him chase shadows for 1 more hour, phoning Nora's burner, which rang to my recorder, pacing his office, bugged via a maintenance cleaning Clara arranged. His voice echoed in my earbud, fraying at the edges. Something's off. She's in Paris, has to be. Who the hell's pulling strings? The unravelling, thread by thread until the only string left was the one leading home. To me. And as his taillights vanished toward Greenwich, the sun breaking through like a verdict, I turned the key. Time to end the act. But in that rear-view glance at the mansion's silhouette, a pang hit. Not for the man, but for the girl I'd been, the one who'd signed away pieces of her soul on dotted lines of love. That girl was gone, forged into something unbreakable in the fire. And Ethan? He'd lit the match. Now he'd feel the burn. Monday blurred into a haze of shadowed drives and stolen glances, but by Tuesday noon, with the auction clock ticking like a bomb in my gut, the pieces locked into place. Nora's full debrief had flooded our secure drop. Cayman ledgers scanned in haste. Victim statements she'd coaxed over late-night tears. Even the flight confirmations. Business class to Nassau, 2 seats. No Lily. He's cutting her loose, she'd whispered during our second meet. Huddled in a park bench fog, her hand protective over the subtle curve of her belly, told me once she was collateral from a bad bet. His ex-wife's revenge pregnancy, he called it. Plans to rehome her with a cousin in Ohio once the dust settles. Collateral. The word lodged like shrapnel, fueling the fire Clara and I stoked through the afternoon, coordinating with a family law shark for Lily's custody freeze, looping in the DA's victim advocate, who'd already fielded calls from 2 more ghosts. A realtor in Jersey, a professor in Rhode Island, both with scars matching Nora's map. We convened at Harlan's corner office overlooking the harbour, the room thick with the scent of aged oak and fresh ink. Depositions stacked like battlements, coffee gone bitter in china mugs. Harlan, 68 with a voice like gravel under tyres, leaned back in his leather throne, spectacles perched low. Injunctions alive, Sophia. Banks cooperating. Foreclosure stayed pending fraud probe. And this Voss file. He tapped the dossier thick as a novel. It's a career ender. Pattern fraud, identity theft, elder abuse on your mother. Days salivating for RICO angles. 20 plus if it sticks. Clara nodded from the window seat, her laptop a glow of timelines. Nora's the linchpin. Her testimony ties the bow. But we need her ironclad. Ethan's slick could spin her as the mastermind. I paced the Persian rug, heels sinking soft, mind a whirlwind of contingencies. She is. Pregnant, cornered, but willing. We'll prep her like a star witness, rehearse the angles, get her psych eval for leverage. Harlan's eyes softened, just a flicker, the mentor peering through the machinations. Your father's fire in you, girl. He'd be chest-puffed seeing this. Dad. The mention tugged, a thread to the journal I'd clutched like a Bible these past days. In the end, justice isn't vengeance. It's the quiet reclaiming of what's yours. Quiet. That's how we'd play it. No headlines yet, no scorched earth leaks. Let Ethan stew in his unravelling web, believing the glitch was bad luck, a rogue auditor, anything but the wife he'd buried alive. By 4, the calls went out. Mum updated with gentle steel. It's handled, Evelyn. He's the one losing now. Her voice wobbling but holding, fortified by the trust Harlan redrafted on the spot, bulletproof against ghosts. Lily's school got a discreet alert, temporary guardian pending, no contact with Ethan, Clara's pull with a social worker ensuring the girl's world didn't shatter overnight. And me? I slipped into a burner call to Ethan, VPN routed through a Paris cafe's Wi-Fi echo, my voice laced with jet-lag weariness. Finally landed, love. Crowds were murder. Keynote killed it, though. Quantum trusts, remember? Wish you could have heard the applause. His laugh crackled through, strained at the edges, that practiced warmth fraying like cheap thread. Proud of you, Soph. Always. Hey, rough day here, bank glitches, you know. But it'll sort. Miss you fierce. Home tomorrow? Can't wait, I murmured, the lie smooth as silk, hanging up to the sound of his exhale, relief laced with something sharper, suspicion's first bloom. Night fell as I checked into a safe harbour of my own, a borrowed pied-à-terre in the city, courtesy of Harlan's network. Walls bare but for a single photo I'd salvaged from the mansion's digital vault, me and Mom on the cottage porch, Dad's shadow in the frame, laughing at some forgotten joke. Staring at it, phone dark in my lap, the weight pressed, not just Ethan's empire crumbling, but the fragile empire of trust I'd built on sand. Yet in the quiet, a resolve hardened, Dad's light flickering steady. Tomorrow the curtain fell, and when it did, I'd step into the spotlight, not as victim, but as the one holding the script. Wednesday dawned with a bite in the air, the kind that sharpens edges and clears the fog, and I rose before the city stirred, slipping into the navy wool dress that hugged like resolve, simple lines, high collar, the one I'd worn to Dad's memorial, a talisman against the unravelling. Lily's drawing from Ethan's text burned in my pocket, folded small. That crayon house, our fam, a child's faith I'd shield fiercer than any trust fund. Clara's final ping hit at 7, all green. DA steam and router post confront. Nora's tucked safe, motel with security, go time. I drove the familiar curve of 95 back to Greenwich, the mansion rising like a false idol in the rear view, ivy now thorns in my mind's eye. Parked across the green, under the ancient oak that shaded our garden parties, I waited, binoculars down, heart a metronome counting to 0. Ethan's SUV nosed in at 8:32, 10 minutes off his ritual, coat rumpled like his composure. He vanished inside and I gave it 5, enough for the coffee ritual, the scan of headlines that wouldn't mention his name yet. Then, engine humming low, I pulled to the curb, steps measured on the flagstone path, key turning in the lock with a click that echoed like fate's latch. The foyer smelled of him, leather and that citrus cologne, the one I'd gifted for his 40th now cloying as deceit. Up the stairs I went, deliberate now, no ghosting through shadows, the third tread groaning under my weight like a warning unheeded. His office door stood ajar, voice spilling out in frantic staccato. Nora, pick up, damn it, the accounts are ice, injunctions everywhere. She's in Paris. Has to be. Unless? No, can't be. I pushed the door wide, filling the frame, and his swivel chair scraped as he spun, phone clattering to the desk, face cycling through shock to script, confusion, then that husbandly concern, eyes crinkling false. Soph? What, Paris? I thought... I never left, I said, voice even as a gavel, stepping in to claim the space between us. His desk a no-man's land of scattered files, legacy ledgers peeking like guilty confessions. Forgot my passport. Came back, heard you. With her. Planning the end of us. Of Mom, the firm, everything Dad built. His mouth worked, airless, that silver tongue stilled for the first time in years. I let it hang, the silence thickening, then pressed. Ethan Voss, not Hale. 3 years in Walpole for the Boston widows, the Philly flips. Nora told me everything, the videos, the blackmail, the way you groomed her like you did me. And Lily, your heart, you said. Collateral now? Offshore for 2, her ship to Ohio like luggage. The mask shattered then, not with rage but a raw scramble, hands up placating, voice pitching low like closing an argument. Soph, listen, it's not... I can explain. Bad investments snowballed. I was protecting us. Lily's safe, I swear. Your idea even to give her space. Lies layered thin, but I cut through, pulling the affidavit from my bag, Nora's signature bold as betrayal. Protected. $720,000 bled from Mum's cottage, the secret trust Dad hid for me, the one with the Cayman kicker you sniffed out how. By playing the grieving son-in-law, fixing faucets while forging her name. His eyes darted to the window, the green beyond mocking his cage, then back, calculation flickering to desperation. We can fix this. Divorce quiet, assets split fair. For Lily's sake, she adores you, Soph. Don't make her the casualty. Lily. The name was his last card, played soft, but it ignited me. Not fury's blaze, but a cold forge. Casualty? Like Elise in Boston. Or the Philly owner who lost her gallery and her will to fight. Nora's pregnant, Ethan? You're ghosting her too? No, this ends now. DA's downstairs. Charges filing by 5. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy. 20 years minimum, own it. For once, drop the act. He lunged then, not violent but grasping, hand on my arm, eyes pleading like the man I'd married. I did love you. In the cracks, at least. The real you under the armour. Please. I wrenched free, the door banging open to uniforms in the hall, Detective Reyes leading with badge glinting like justice's edge. Mr. Voss, hands where I can see him. Cuffs clicked cold, his gaze locking mine one last beat, hatred raw, then hollow, as they marched him down, coat trailing like a fallen flag. In the foyer, amid the echo of his rites recited, Nora waited in the wings, face pale but chin high, hand on her belly like a vow. For her, she mouthed, and I nodded, the first bridge not burned but built. As the door swung shut on his world, sirens fading to whispers, I stood in the quiet we'd faked for years, not broken but remade. Scarred, yes, but standing taller in the light, Dad left. The weeks that followed unfolded like a deposition I finally controlled, each day a exhibit in the case against the man who'd worn my husband's skin. Court convened in Stamford's federal wing, a vaulted chamber of polished walnut and echoing gavels, where Ethan, Voss now in orange that clashed with his pallor, sat flanked by a defence attorney, all sharp suits and sharper objections. Mum gripped my hand in the gallery, her knuckles bird fragile but grip iron, Evelyn Hale who'd traded tears for testimony. He brought soup, yes, and stole my home. The prosecutor, a whip-lean woman named Torres with a prosecutor's fire, laid it bare, pattern laid out in timelines and transfers. Nora on the stand, her voice steady as sea glass. He said I was special. Then he said I'd be nothing without him. The videos, sealed, but their shadow loomed, turning jury faces to stone. Ethan's turn came mid-trial, his narrative a house of cards. Desperation, Your Honour. Debts from the ex, Lily's medicals. Sophia knew. We planned together. Lies, of course, but they landed soft until Clara's cross pulled the threads. Bank pings proving he'd ghosted 2 priors mid-scheme. Elise's note entered as exhibit, her words a ghost in the room. Bail denied at 3 mil, untouchable with assets iced. Sentencing set for December, whispers of 18 years minimum, Rico's weight pressing like tide. As they led him out, eyes finding mine across the aisle, no plea this time, just a glare cold as winter sound. You win, he mouthed, but I turned away, Mum's whisper cutting through, no, darling. We survive. Recovery was no straight line, but a mosaic pieced slow. 68% of the bleed clawed back through asset seizures, enough to clear Mum's cottage outright. Harlan folding it into an irrevocable trust with clauses tighter than Dad's old briefs. The firm. Hale and Associates bloomed fiercer. My keynote rescheduled to a TEDx in Boston, where I spoke not of digital predators, but human ones. Vigilance isn't fear. It's the key to your light. Clients flooded in, drawn to the transparency, the woman who'd turned scar into seminar. Nora vanished into witness protection, her bump a promise I'd check on quarterly. A quiet fund from the recovered pot earmarked for her fresh start. And Lily? The courts moved swift, temporary with her aunt in Ohio, but I petitioned for guardianship, visits starting tentative, crayons and questions in a park, her small hand in mine as we skipped stones. Aunt Soph, she called me shy, but the trust bloomed. Fragile as new leaves. 2 years slipped by like fog off the sound, landing me 37 in a sunlit walk-up off Gramercy. Walls lined with Dad's journals rebound fresh, shelves groaning under case law, and Nora's thank-you notes forwarded anonymous. The mansion sold quick, proceeds seeding the Hale Legacy Fund, grants for fraud survivors, workshops on spotting wolves in wool, a network that grew from 5 ghosts to 50, coffee clatches turning to conferences where Elise's sister spoke, her voice a bridge over the ache. I dated in fits. Dinners with a litigator who quoted poetry, a curator with eyes like honest harbours, but walls stayed high, not from fear, but wisdom. Trust earned in layers, not leaps. Mum noticed, over lemon bars in the cottage kitchen, her eyes soft. "Don't let him steal your tomorrows, Soph." I smiled then, real and unarmoured. He didn't. He taught me to build better ones. Therapy helped carve the scars smooth, sessions with Dr. Ellis, no relation, thank God, unpacking the Ice Queen echo until it rang hollow. And in quiet nights, staring at the city pulse beyond my window, I'd think of Ethan upstate, counting years in a cell that echoed his cons. Remorse. Doubt it. Men like him saw mirrors, not messes. But his mistake? Picking a woman whose light didn't dim easy. Dad's words closed the book each time. Guard it fierce. And I did. For Mum, for Lily, for the ghosts who'd whispered back to life. Betrayal's a thief, yes, but survivors? We're the reclamation artists, turning ruins to revelations. If this tale of quiet fire held you to the end, darling, hit like and linger in the comments. What bridge did you burn to build anew? Subscribe for more whispers from the edge. Your story might just light someone's dark.